Hello, welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today I will be reviewing some quality men's footwear. Made by Alden of New England, one of the oldest companies still producing quality men's footwear in the United States. This is the Alden 405 Indy Boot. So called because they featured quite prominently in the Indiana Jones movies. Yes, even Dr. Jones himself approves of these boots. I can show you a few kind of low quality screen caps of Dr. Jones wearing these same boots in the Indiana Jones movies. Excellent. These have changed a little bit over the years. The style is basically the same. The color has changed a little bit, and some of the construction method has changed. Originally they had a cotton duck lining, now they have a full glove leather lining. The color was a darker brown originally, and if you saw those, or as you saw in those pictures I showed you of them being worn in the film, they were obviously much darker, much more worn, and that could just be set dressing, people aging the wardrobe for use in the film. And a few years ago, I believe these were more of kind of a brick reddy color, or more of a pumpkin kind of color. This example that I have right here is a lot darker than they come new, and this is the 405 in the original brown. And let me show you a picture of how they come when they are new. They're much lighter than they appear right now. So as I said, the 405 original brown calfskin. They also come in several different Horween Chrome XL colors. There's a natural Chrome XL, a navy Chrome XL. There's a brown Chrome XL. They have a black calf leather with white stitching. They also have a brown kudu leather with a commando sole. I think there's even a suede version. Lots of different versions of this boot available, but this is the original brown calfskin 405. The 403 is the brown Chrome XL, and J. Crew has a boot that they call the 405, but it's actually the 403 in brown Chrome XL with some slightly different stitching on the heel here. Instead of the stitching that goes across the side, they have stitching that comes down the heel. They call it the 405, but it technically isn't the 405. This is the 405. Most styles of the Indy Boot retail for a little over $500. You can usually find the 405 for around $522 online, but I will also tell you about how you could perhaps get it for cheaper if you do a little research. But now I think it's time to see what they look like on. I'm going to show you how they look with jeans, maybe how they look with slacks, talk about what would be the appropriate attire to wear with these boots or to wear these boots with. Then we'll go into some of the features of the boots. I'll talk about how to care for them. And finally, at the end, I will give you my opinion of these Alden 405 Indy boots. So here I am wearing them with a pair of jeans, which I think would be the most common application for boots like these. These are casual boots after all. I think they look quite good in this role. The color and style of these boots I think suits jeans wear quite well. So here they are with a pair of slacks. I would probably be less likely to wear these boots with pants like this, but you know, if you get the boots, you want to wear them with slacks, go ahead. But I think with a casual boot like this, they're quite a bit more suited to jeans, maybe khaki pants or something like that. I don't wear khaki pants. A lot of people have these hard and fast rules about what you can wear with what. And in general, you know, it's a good idea to have those things in mind depending on what kind of situation you're in, the social event. But really, you know, whatever works. If you can pull it off, you can pull it off. But I'd probably be unlikely to wear these boots with these pants. Maybe with a sweater or something on top. Definitely not with a suit. I don't think I would ever wear these boots with a suit. And finally, here are the Alden 405 Indy boots worn with black socks and a pair of shorts. I don't recommend this. All right then, features of the Alden 405 Indy Boot in original brown leather calfskin. As I already mentioned in the introduction, these are a little darker than they come new. I put some oil and some shoe cream or boot cream on them, darkened it up a little bit. And as I also mentioned, these were made famous by the Indiana Jones films. Harrison Ford was a fan of these Alden work boots at the time. They obviously weren't called Indy boots. He wore these when he was a carpenter, and when they were making Indiana Jones, he wanted to wear them in the film. So I have to admit that had a little bit to do with why I picked these boots out to begin with. But even if they had had nothing to do with the Indiana Jones film, I would still have been drawn to these. I really like the look of them, like the style. I think they look quite nice. that brings us to the design. It's a very timeless design. You can see this with the mock toe stitching here, this Blucher or derby style, Blucher if you're American, derby if you're from the UK usually. And let me explain the difference there. You can see the way the eyelets are attached to this boot. So this is the quarter, this is the vamp. The quarter is sewn onto the vamp, on top of the vamp, so that has a more of an open lace design, and that is usually indicative of a more casual style. So this is more of a casual work boot style. I have a pair here of Allen Edmond Balmorals, Oxfords if you're English, and here the vamp is sewn on top of the quarter, and so it's a closed lace style, and that just gives it more of a sleek kind of formal look. So on a formal pair of shoes, you will usually see this closed lace style of Balmoral and Oxford. And on a more casual pair of shoes or boots, you will see this derby slash Blucher style where the vamp is actually, or the quarter is actually sewn on top of the vamp, making an open lace style. And I like that look. I think it looks really nice. I like the stitching on this all the way around. I think it is quite attractive. Now, this is built on the Alden Trubalance last. Now, if you do some research on Alden, they have all sorts of different lasts, and the last is basically the form on which they sew their uppers. It gives the shoe the shape. And the Trubalance last was originally made as sort of an orthopedic shoe, which is kind of interesting. It was for people with back problems, people who needed a little more support. It also features kind of a wider, larger toe box, and just in general, a larger shoe. And that being the case, you do usually need to size 1/2 size smaller than you would normally wear. I normally wear a 10.5D in dress shoes, and usually kind of like an 11 or 11.5 in athletic shoes. But in dress shoes, 10.5D, which is medium. The Trubalance last being the way it is, I ordered these in a 10D, and they fit me absolutely perfectly. So 1/2 size smaller worked very well for me. As I mentioned, the mock toe stitching here. They have Neo-Cork outsoles. So this is a combination of cork and neoprene, which is supposed to be very non-slip. I've worn these in the rain, haven't had any issues with them. Haven't worn them in ice yet. A normal, just plain leather sole is usually pretty damn slippery in ice. This maybe might have a little more traction, I'm not sure. It also does have a rubber heel here. And this heel is actually a Thomas foot balance heel. And this is actually made sort of orthopedic as well. This little extension you see here on the heel is supposed to give you a little more support. It has full glove leather lining. You can see here. Originally these had a cotton duck lining, I believe, but for the last few years they've been doing a full leather lining. They have vegetable tanned leather insoles here. And there's a layer of cork under the insole, so it will really form to your foot as you wear these boots for a while. And there is a tempered steel shank under the cork, so it just lends shape and support and extra strength to the shoe, makes them feel very solid. Now these shoes, or these boots, originally feature contrast stitching. You can still see it on mine a little bit, even though I've put some brown shoe polish on these. But here in the welt and here in the mock toe is more of a white stitching. I'm not a huge fan of that, so I'm perfectly fine to let that darken. I can use darker oils or creams on this boot without worry. I don't care if it darkens the stitching. Other people might want to use a neutral oil or cream if they're going to put products on their boots to keep that stitching there. And then it has a Goodyear welted construction. You can see this Goodyear welt isn't 180 degrees. It doesn't go all the way around. And they do that basically to give a little more grace to the heel, because if you have this Goodyear welting, the Goodyear welt is basically a way that the upper is sewn on to the lower, and it makes it quite easy to recraft these shoes, to take the soles off or the lowers off and replace them. It was a process developed by Charles Goodyear Jr. in 1869, sort of an automated process. I won't get into all the history of that, but it's a very good way to construct traditional shoes. And often the welt will go all the way around to the back here, but on this pair of shoes it does not. And I think that really adds to kind of the sleek look of this heel, because otherwise this would have to stick out a ways for the welting to go all the way around. Now, I suppose another aspect you would have to consider when thinking about purchasing these boots would be the price, which I must admit is a bit spendy. For the average, middle-class person, $522 is not cheap. But I've got a pro tip for you. I did not spend $522 on these boots, and I probably wouldn't spend $522 on these boots in spite of the quality and how much I enjoy them, how much I like them. I just can't justify spending that much on footwear. Your mileage may vary, that's just kind of the way I am. But what often happens is that people will buy a pair of shoes, and especially shoes like these. These shoes built on the Trubalance last, the sizing is a little finicky. You have to kind of be careful. People might have ordered the size that they think they should have, got them home, realized they were too big, but they wore them out. And once they wear them out, you usually can't return a pair of shoes like this, especially shoes with leather soles, anything that's going to show any scratching on the bottom of the sole when you wear them outside. That's why I would always recommend, if you're trying on a pair of shoes, wear them inside on carpet. Don't wear them outside, or else they'll get scratched up and you probably can't return them. So there are a lot of people with shoes. If you look on eBay, other websites, style forums, things like that, you can often find shoes like this, boots like this, for much less than the retail price, and they've hardly been worn at all. Someone purchased them, wore them out once, realized they were too big or realized they didn't fit properly, couldn't return them, and then they put them on eBay. And that's how I found these. These were pretty much unworn. There was no creasing on them at all. The soles just had the slightest little hint that they had been worn maybe once or twice. So that is a very good way to find very, very high quality shoes for much less. Pretty much all my sort of fancy, expensive shoes, I have not paid full retail for. I've gotten them on eBay or got them on other websites like that. So how would one care for this boot? This isn't really the kind of thing that I would use an actual shoe polish on, like if you got just a classic Kiwi brown shoe polish or whatever brand you might prefer. This boot doesn't really look good with a really high shine, in my opinion. At the very least, I would suggest maybe once a month, depending on how often you wear them and under what conditions you wear them. If you're in the damp, the rain, the snow, the slush, I would recommend using some sort of oil or conditioner. I have all sorts of different things. I have a Lexol leather conditioner. I have an Allen Edmonds conditioner cleaner. There's also things like Picard's leather dressing, things that have neat's foot oil in them. If you use an oil like that, though, you will darken the color. Not significantly necessarily, depending on the product. There are some products that are neutral, supposedly, that won't darken the color. And a lot of people like the contrasting stitching. I'm not actually a huge fan of the contrasting stitching, so I don't really care if that darkens, but other people will want to use a more neutral colored product to make sure that the stitching stays contrasting to the color of the leather. I have personally been using, and I haven't had these long, but I've been using the Alden Fine Boot Cream. They make this in a neutral, but I've been using it in brown because I'm actually trying to darken up the color a little bit. I showed you a picture of what this boot looks like when new, and it's significantly lighter than this, and this is only one application of this just dark brown Alden boot cream. But what you do is, I would use a dauber or something, or a soft cloth. You can use a soft cloth like this to apply the boot cream, or a dauber like this to really get into all the different seams and everything. I like to get it into the welt, get it into the stitching, all around, take the laces out, daub on this fine boot cream, let it dry, and then I rub it off with a soft cloth. Or actually, what I would do instead, perhaps, is use a horsehair brush like this, get off all the excess, rub it off, and then perhaps get a soft cloth and rub it out after that as well. And that doesn't give you a high shine, but it conditions the leather, protects the leather, and then some people might follow that up with even another sort of leather protectant like Picard's, as I mentioned. It's kind of up to you. I just wouldn't recommend using a shoe polish. A high shine would not, I think, be appropriate on shoes like this. And if they get dirty, also the brush can be used for that. You can just brush dust off with this. If they get really dirty, you can dampen a cloth, wipe them down. Make sure when you dry them, you don't put them next to a heat source though, because if you have damp leather and then put it next to, let's say you have a radiator or a space heater or something like that, it could actually crack the leather as it dries. I also recommend the use of shoe trees. Now, a lot of people would say with a casual boot like this that shoe trees are not necessary at all. I disagree, because even though, this isn't a pair of formal Balmorals or something, I like the fact that the shoe tree, for one thing, prevents the toe from curling when you store the shoe. That almost inevitably happens as the shoe gets moist when you're wearing them, it dries out, the leather will curl, and that also gives it more of a tendency to crack on the seams. This keeps the shoe in shape, or the boot in shape. Make sure that that doesn't happen. And then also, if you're wearing these under adverse conditions, or even if you're just sweating in your boots a little bit, putting a cedar shoe tree like this in the boot dries the boot out from the inside, and it's very, very beneficial to the longevity of your shoes or your leather boots. Alden also offers a restoration service for all of their boots and or shoes. You can go through the Alden shop of San Francisco or go just to the Alden website online, and it's the Alden restoration service. It's $169, and from the Alden website it says, for $169, you get a convenient prepaid mailer. Your Alden shoes will receive an expert rebuilding, including all necessary repairs using original materials carefully hand-worked on the original lasts. We will refinish them by hand and return them with Alden cedar shoe trees and cloth bags. So if you need resoling, new heels, if the upper needs work, the vamp, you can send them to Alden and they will do that work for you. I would say, you know, this has kind of an interesting heel on it. It's the Footbalance a Thomas heel, and I don't know if your everyday average cobbler is going to have access to that. If they do, then putting on this heel probably wouldn't be a big deal. For a resoling, I would probably send them to Alden though, but I would assume the wear pattern on this would be heel first, and the sole would probably last for quite some time. But if you need that service, Alden does offer it. So now that I've given you a very detailed look at the Alden 405 Indy /work boot in original brown, it's time to give you my final thoughts. What do I actually think of them? Well, in spite of the fact that the work boot style has become pretty popular amongst, let's say, urban hipsters of this day and age, and the fact that I usually kind of shy away from things that are a little too popular, I can't help but absolutely love these boots. And I've always liked boots. I've always enjoyed wearing boots. I'm kind of a boot kind of guy. These are the best boots I have ever owned, and I absolutely love them. They have a timeless appearance. I really love this mock toe stitching here. I love the stitching on the side. It really sets off the quarter from the vamp. I love the heel, the proportions of the heel. It's not too high, it's not too low. They're really rugged, but they just scream style. They're impeccably detailed and crafted. Amazing quality. The quality of the leather is absolutely outstanding. They should last for years and years and years and years with proper care. They're extremely durable. That steel shank just gives a feeling of such solidness to these boots, but they're not heavy, they're not clunky. They fit amazingly well, and they are literally the most comfortable boot I have ever worn in my entire life. They feel amazing. No break-in period required at all, at least for me. And for my shoe size, they fit me just impeccably. Obviously, remember, you have to size down half a size. I'm usually a 10.5. I got these in a 10D when I'm normally a 10.5D, so bear that in mind. That Trubalance last, even though it's a little bulkier in the toe box, it's not outsized, it doesn't look out of proportion, and it's really, really comfortable. You have room for your toes to move around in. And I can walk all day in these things and have no fatigue whatsoever. They're amazing. I love them. That's it. I absolutely love them. If you can justify the expense, and yes, they are spendy, but as I mentioned, it is possible to get them for cheaper than retail if you look around a little bit, do some research. If you can justify the expense, these will be one of the best boots you can ever own, and I think you couldn't help but love them. So, that has been my review of the Alden 405 Indy Boot in original brown. Thank you so much for watching. I've been your good friend Bradley. You have been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things. Good day.